Hello.
That's when you thought Simon's nose couldn't get any bigger.
Oh. There we go. Anyway,
Hello.
back. Welcome, one and all, to Humpday Q&A.
Yeah.
We're going to jump straight in. So we'll do the quick introductions and then we'll get on with the show.
All righty.
So, Scott.
Be nice, be respectful, be constructive. Don't be an idiot. Don't post anything that's adult, rude. Don't be an idiot. Don't advertise or promote anything. We all know you need a job. Don't spam the same question over and over. Every time we see your question, it goes to the bottom of the list. Even if you were next, you'll be taken out of that spot and sent to the bottom. This is what happens when you keep asking the same question again and again. Harassment of any kind is not tolerated. Basically, idiots are not tolerated. No misogyny, no bigotry, no other harassment like that. And if you get kicked from here, we shop your name around to everybody we know. So Discord, Slack, everybody else is going to know who you are. Lastly, have a good time.
Have a good time. Let's do some introductions. My name is Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO at Dependency London. And you can follow me on Twitter /X at London, and you'll find me helping to organize Flutter London and FlutterCon and all these other things. Scott.
My name is Scott Stahl. I am also Flutter Community Organizer and a GDG organizer for Cleveland. Write code under Good Dog Apps and have been enjoying playing around with LLMs and retrieval augmented generation in Flutter.
And we also have Randall, our question magician. Randall
Schwartz. I've been a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert for as long as the program's been around, so 5.5 years at this point, I think. And I regularly code in Flutter full-time. I also give presentations, which I'll be talking about in a few minutes. And for this show, I am the question magician, which means that I am watching the live chat, looking for things that start with Q:. If Q: in the front, we put it in our queue. Yeah, I got to make the bad pun again. And then that gets answered. So the Q: means it's for us as a panel. If you're asking questions without Q, we think you're just asking each other. So that's our way of distinguishing whether it's for us or for just y'all.
Now, that happens more than you would think. The chat answers each other's questions a lot.
All the time. Yeah.
And we've got Danielle. Danielle, welcome to the stream.
Hey, everybody. I am Danielle Cox. I am one of the organizers of the Flutteristas, which is something I'm very proud of. We're an organization of female and non-binary Flutter enthusiasts. And if you happen to meet those qualifications and you want in, let me know. There's a little thing you fill out, and I'll get you fast-tracked. All right. And then I'm also the tech lead for a startup called Ardley.
Thank you. We also have PK here. The one that only. Come on.
Yes.
Yeah. Introduce yourself, PK.
CodePer, MTech Viral, many other names throughout the aeons. I think did you teach Methuselah to code? Under a different name.
Now it is just called CodePer. So hi everyone, I'm Pawan Kumar. You might be knowing me from the channel called CodePer, and we have been lately we have not been in touch with the community people a lot, but it's good to be back on this Flutter community channel. I'm really feeling glad that we are here, and finally I think it's been 6 years we have been in touch, all of us. 6-7 years, and it feels like a great journey so far. So I'm really excited. I mean, the excitement is still the same even after 7 or 6 years.
And what's really great is that feeling that we all have, it stays even if we don't see each other for a long time, because PK and I were in a car together for like 6 hours, but that was in 2019 and it still feels like yesterday.
Absolutely. It was one of the best experience I had with Scott. I mean, we did talk a lot during that.
That's not saying much. Best experience with me. Wait, what?
I think it was more than 6 hours.
There was something better. No, I think it was about 6.5.
6 hours in the car. 6 hours in the car with Scott. That's got to be the worst experience, yeah.
Right?
No,
No,
I
it's for
enjoyed
anyone
it.
who knows,
We had a lot
we
of
drove from New York City to Rochester, New York.
Just a little trip,
yeah.
just a few miles.
Yep. Ah,
Yeah.
anyone in Europe, yes, that
Experience?
that tells you how big the U.S. is, because we drove 6 hours and never left New York State. That's all with
Yeah.
It's
That's true.
yeah. I cannot be the only one that's relieved to have Randall back on the screen here. I don't feel the pressure to make his bad jokes, things like that.
I do my own
Yeah, we all had to fill
dad
in.
jokes. Yes.
Exactly,
Yes. Right. I can definitely do my own dad jokes. I could literally be doing dad jokes now, which is
Dad jokes
another
or
story,
bad
but,
jokes?
I'm gonna say dad jokes or
No.
bad jokes.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Out too. But yeah, that's if you haven't seen his story, Randall's got an amazing story about that.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not following me on Facebook or Twitter, you're probably not noticing anything unusual here, but I've definitely had a unique recent experience in my life, a story that you can't make up. It was so amazing. So anyway, so can I talk about yesterday?
Oh, sure.
Because
No.
I think let's go ahead and do that. So we have now an active GDG here in Portland, Oregon, and they're meeting monthly. They're doing presentations. I have a standing invitation anytime I want to come in to do a prezo, because I'm one of the few GDEs in town. So it's really nice that I have a home turf now that I can go deliver and be able to share with people. So I was invited to do a workshop, which be a hands-on Flutter, intro to Flutter workshop. And Philippe wrote this really great code lab to kind of get you started and incrementally build up an app that generates random word pairs and has favorites and stuff. It's actually a quite intricate thing. It uses provider, it uses some interesting packages and so on. And so I decided I was going to use that, and we were trying to figure out how to have it be a hands-on workshop. And that would require, and everybody who's taught Flutter already knows this, it means you got to get everybody's machine has to have Flutter on it, and the ways to get that in and get it all configured right will eat up 2 hours of your
it's not
workshop.
installing Flutter on a fresh machine. That's easy. It's when the developers already install bits of other SDKs and stuff that all conflict or have problems.
Mhm.
Me and Scott spent, I think, 4 hours of a workshop day. I think it was like half the workshop day, maybe 3 hours.
No, we had 5 people in that workshop that were helping, all 5 of us, and we
volunteers.
Split off 2 or 3.
It was we had about 3 or 4 computers each that we were fixing. Though it was
right. Well, and the
people.
thing is we broke we had to break the presenters up, and 3 of them did almost nothing except going around trying to help people install, while the other 2 were teaching the workshop, all at the same time. It was really crazy. We were in there for 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
And we had allocated time for that in this workshop. And well, actually, what we're telling people is please make sure you're completely installed before you get here. But just a few days ago, actually, I think it was at Google I/O, the IDX project became open beta. If you have a Google account, you can go get an IDX account, an IDX system. And for those of you who don't know about IDX, it's basically a virtual framework. It provides a VS Code editor and a file system, and you can, and there are templates for everything, including Flutter. So all you have to do is go to this one website. You click a few buttons and say, I accept this and I do that. And then you get this screen that has a Flutter button on it. You press that Flutter button, and in about 3 minutes, this is all happening remote in remote Linux virtual machines for free so far. It's in beta, so maybe that's why it's free. I don't know if they're going to price it. If they price it, it'll be interesting. But then you see a VS Code editor completely laid out with the counter app, and you have a window that has the web version of that and a window that has the Android version of that. So you have a live Android emulator to play with.
So this is
And
like
it is-
Dartpad with the Flutter SDK, but on steroids.
Yes, because you actually have a real Linux backend, and in fact, you can drop down into the Linux command line and do things. It's Linux.
What's the
yeah.
code editor like though? Is it fully featured? Like because
It's
Dartpad is very limited,
it's full,
right?
it's full VS Code. It is
Nice.
entirely VS Code in the web.
Yeah,
what-
it
what's
absolutely
Yeah.
looks like VS Code.
Sorry.
I mean, it looks like VS Code only. It's the same thing. I mean, it's just on
Yeah.
cloud basically.
I mean, this thing
responsive?
is incredibly responsive.
Nice.
This thing is so good that just a second, I'm having some audio problems. There we go. This thing is so good that it even does the refactoring. So it's even running the analyzer, and so you type in a variable that's not used yet, it squiggles it. I mean, it's the full development environment, but you're doing it entirely virtually. And so I had 20 students going along step by step with me. And I had two tabs open where I would cut back and forth between the code lab and my IDX. And I would cut and paste stuff from one to the other. And I could follow along, except it was funny for the code lab. They spend the first 4 pages of the code lab, how to install. And I went, we're done with that. We can skip right to page 5. It's fine. And it was such a wonderful teaching experience that I think this is a game changer for being able to teach Flutter, to be able to just drop into IDX everywhere. So,
and that's what we thought Dartpad was going to be when they started originally allowing it. It's really difficult to do. It is a lot more difficult.
The difference is the fact that you can like embed that, like in the documentation, you can embed that with a running example. That is the power of Dartpad. That is the power of like linking it with Flutter Web, being able to like, oh, but what happens if I change the parameter to this? Hit save, and you see it, right? Like it's that it brings that step forward. But it's not a fully integrated environment.
IDX goes much further. It actually, since it's real, I can have a pub spec that has anything in it. And I can even take an existing Git repo and bring it into IDX, edit it, and push it back. So I can collaborate with this as well. I mean, it's basically everything you want in an interactive environment. Just a few restrictions, not bad though. But the fact that the Android emulator, when I change color from blue to green and press save, boom, it's green. It's immediate. I mean, it's definitely acting just like that's running the Android emulator on your desktop.
But
so
I do see that, but I mean, of course it would, because like, you know, that's exactly what it's running, but in a cloud server.
Right.
And it's just the output of the display that's coming down to your machine, right? Just like any sort of VNC/remote control desktop, except you're not getting the bitmap, you're actually getting the rendering of the client side.
So all you need is a Google account, which if you got a Gmail address, you have one, and then go to idx.google.com, and you can start playing with this today. Oh, and by the way, Flutter is only one of the 30 templates they have. They also have Angular and Gemini and all sorts of really amazing. That's the missing feature. I forgot to talk about. There's Gemini chat embedded in the editor. So it's just like, you know, if you're playing with Copilot before, this is like Copilot, but it's Gemini. And that's also, all this is for free.
Well, and one point I want to make is, Simon, you were talking about using Dartpad with documentation links, which that's great. But when you walk into a 2-hour workshop ready to teach something and a whole bunch of people don't have it installed, and you look at them and it's like, I'm sorry, this is going to take an hour to get you straightened out, and it's not fair for everybody else, you know, so you're just going to have to try to install while we're teaching. But this IDX really solves that problem by walking in, and they say, you don't have it installed. Well, that's fine. Go to IDX and you can code along, just like you did have it installed, which is a very different thing than what we get in Dartpad. Because in Dartpad, when I was trying to do this same thing, you have to put everything in one of two files, either main or test. And so you're cramming everything in there. And Remy got provider to work in Dartpad. You know what he did? He created the test file, which the user doesn't see, and he crammed the entire provider package into the test file in one file. And that's how he got it to work.
That was before it supports the packages now. But yeah, I agree. Just a reminder from people. Yeah, if you post a link in your messages, we will not get the message at all. If you want us to share code, grab it, go push it up on GitHub Gist, and put the hash to the gist in the chat, and we can get it from there.
And Raman, I think that will work, but I can't check it for some strange reason. If I try to click on it, it'll just put it on the screen. So Simon has to do that.
The other unusual thing that happened at this seminar is that because the person who had access to the giant projection screen was unavailable, we actually set up Bevy so that I was Bevy presenting to everybody in the room that was Bevy logged in. So the audio was just me speaking in the room and listening for people in the room. So we weren't using that for audio, but we were using it for my presentation. The advantage I actually discovered about that is it's much higher resolution than putting it up on a big screen. So it was actually nicer. I could make my characters smaller than I would have had to have made them for a giant projection screen behind me. Nice. So that's a really odd use of Bevy, but you might consider that for training classes to be able to have a local presentation. You could use Google Meet too, I guess. Anything that can do like consumption and sharing. But that worked really well too, and I was really nervous about that. I thought, I don't know how Bevy's going to be used for this. I'm not sure if it's going to work. But I pulled it off, and it was great, and people really enjoyed it, and it went really effective. I got good Q&A while the course was going on. Really, some really good questions. I can't remember now because it's the next day. But no, I had a lot of fun doing this. I plan on doing a lot more like this. So, although given that I did it using Bevy, I could have done it from home instead of sitting there in the room. But
speaking of,
it's still gonna make
Danielle. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, Randall, it makes a difference. I'm glad you were in the room, though.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yep.
There's one more thing which I saw with this IDX was that it has this Android and web preview along with when you are starting coding, and then the web version you have an option where you can share the preview as well. So it generates a link of basically it gives you an URL.
Oh, and, wow!
You can directly give it to someone and they can see the preview of that web application inside their system. So I think as an educator, I mean, these things are very, very helpful. Where what I feel about Dartpad, which makes a lot of sense for me at least, is that the embedding part which Simon was mentioning, because there are a lot of times where you want to embed the experience inside your blog, or let's say inside a website which you are building. And one thing which I was doing was I was building this tool called which just takes a picture and converts it to the code. And then I was just using Dartpad to show that code that you provided one UI, a wireframe of a UI as a picture. Maybe you just cropped it from somewhere, you gave it to app, it just converts it to the code, and then it uses Dartpad embedding and shows you the preview as well, that this is how it looks like. Obviously it does not give the best result as pixel perfect, we can't say it, but it's damn good. So Dartpad has its own role, I feel, but this IDX is also, I mean, good enough, I mean, for these kind of, especially for a person like me who is creating tutorials and things like that. I mean, that makes a lot of difference. So
and
before we get Gemini,
before we get too far away from the Bevy thing, because a lot of people
Okay.
don't really know what that is. Bevy is basically a system that Google uses with the GDG groups in order to do presentations, to do dev fests remotely, things like that. And also, Randall, one quick tip that we did, Alan Furstenberg did one for us for AI. And we used Bevy the same standard way, but then also we ran Zoom. And he had a Zoom window up on his computer that did not get shared or recorded, but it showed the audience. And what this allowed him to do was he could see the audience and interact, and he could see if people's heads tilted because they got confused. At one point, we were a couple of us were running around with microphones to the audience for asking questions. And at one point, he's like, somebody's had their hand up in the back for a while. And it was just really weird to see the remote presenter be able to do that. So
Yeah,
that might be something
That-
you think about. Okay,
That's
now
very
that now
cool.
I wanted to get that in before we got too far away from the Bevy thing. Now let's get back to the IDX and the Dartpad.
So the other things that are interested, again, I don't know a lot about IDX. I really haven't played with it a lot, which was sort of scary going into this too, because I knew all of a sudden that, okay, all of my students are going to be using IDX immediately. A tip, an important safety tip. You can accidentally close the web window and the emulator window. And I couldn't find a command to bring those back. But I discovered if you just close your IDX and come back to the same project, open it up again, they put both of them back up there. So I was going, okay, that's how I can bring them back. But I'm sure there's a shorter cut than that. If anybody out there knows, anybody knows IDX, please chime in the chat about how to bring back the emulator if you accidentally close that window, because I fat fingered a Command W at one point. So no, but I tell you, this is a game changer in terms of being able to get, and I can even see this being used practically, not just for demos like this. I think that IDX is going to definitely offer some opportunities for not having to have heavy installs locally just to get things done, and all the maintenance and stuff. I mean, there's no maintenance here. The Flutter gets installed for you. All the pub stuff gets pulled in for you. You can integrate it with your CI/CD because you can push to Git. So yeah, it's definitely fun, and I just wanted to share my experience of actually teaching a class using IDX, and it went swimmingly well.
Good to hear.
And
Right, and I'm going to take myself off the stream because I'm there's too many people here.
I was going to point out that Manish posted how to go search that and find it for the web preview.
Oh, great. Show web preview. Oh, I was kind of looking for that kind of a command, but I couldn't figure out the actual wording of it. Okay, great. Thank you. Manish.
That's what I hate about VS Code. You have to know the command before you can use that command thing. You can't just go to a menu the way you can in IntelliJ and Android Studio.
Now I want to fire up IDX just to see if I can actually make that do that. I can do that while I'm offline. I can do that while I'm backstage. So anyway, I'm going backstage because there's too many people on the screen. So I'll be back later.
Randall always feels that way with 5. 5 is not his number.
Yeah, I know. 5 is good, but
yeah,
Now
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, Randall's able to always do his flex because he is a GDE and has been for a long time. Simon's got his huge Flutter banner behind him. Things like that. The biggest flex I think so far though is the YouTube button in the background there.
The funny, you keep saying flex, and all I can think about is flex is my domain. That's my talk.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's like, that's. I would love one of those YouTube buttons. That's cool.
Don't confuse the flex with the flexed.
That's right.
I have a dash as well, but she is hidden somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, mine's all the way up here by the. There, those two.
I can see.
Mine are upstairs. Mine are actually upstairs. I've not been sitting up in my office lately, so
Simon has a bunch of like the group of like all those dash and Firebase puppy or what they call it. I don't know. Pushy. I think.
Plushy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that Android one also, which you have in the
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
the Android bot.
yeah.
I've got more. Yeah. There's also this one. This is one of my favorites. This one.
Nice.
Pawan, this is what happened when somebody apparently tried your link.
It's not working. I mean, there is an option to share it with more people. I think you will have to add people or things like that. Let me check. Yeah, I mean, you can manage the access. I think I can share with us.
Don't forget, everyone, to start posting your questions in the chat with the queue in front.
Absolutely, please do.
Actually, it's still in preview. So I mean, right now you have to add people who you want to give access to. So maybe
Right.
that's why it might not be working with for a lot of people. But then, yeah, I mean, it's something which might get improved with time because they are adding this support to add collaboration and things like that. So it's in early preview.
Right. So should we jump on with the questions? Yeah. You're muted, Scott, if you're talking to us, but I guess we're going to pick the first question.
All right. Hey, people, I'm making a search field in my app bar with an overlay showing results of the search. Very cool. The selection handle appears and it's under the overlay. Any suggestions? I'm a little bit... okay, I'm looking at this and there's an app bar. And the search field is in the app bar. And then there's an overlay that shows the results. So you're already finished with the search box at this point, right? So what is the handle?
The selection handle.
And yeah, so maybe it's a scrolling. I mean, is it something like that? Is it like
I don't know.
Like you're showing results that are more than would fit in the overlay?
And I'm assuming that it's not a problem that the overlay is covering the search box because the search box is already finished doing its job.
Or
even if it did, it would be below, right, normally.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the selection handle. So the selection handles are normally the text selection handles. They're like the things you select the text with. Is under the overlay. I mean, there should be. I think maybe Zlati, you can post a follow up, and we'll see what we can do.
Well,
we can try building one.
My question here is also: is the app bar just is that just kind of a bonus detail? It doesn't really apply. I mean, what happens if you run the same search box just in the normal part? Does it behave differently? Because I'm not sure what an app bar would do to make that specific.
Yeah, I can't figure out what you're referring to by the handle.
Isn't it because overlay is anyway supposed to be rendering on the top of everything, right? Even if it is a system
well, you have
UI
different.
element.
The overlay though. The overlay entries have an index, and you can put one before another one, and so on and so forth, right? But yeah, I don't quite know what he means by selection handle here, so I think you can.
And I'm wondering if it's a selection handle beneath the overlay. Doesn't the overlay cause the entire screen to be blocked, even if it's off the overlay pop-up itself?
No.
Because then clicking off.
That's only if you got a barrier.
It closes it.
Yeah.
So that's only if you got a barrier and it's designed that way, right?
Yeah, barrier dismissible.
Let's let's see if he comes back with something else. All right.
Okay.
What's next?
I'm going to leave that. We're going to leave that in the in the question list. Not a question.
That's okay.
Simon doesn't need thanked. His head's already big enough.
I need all the thanks. I will have all the thanks. Yes, Austin, that's wonderful.
Give him a cookie. Fine.
If anyone didn't see it, I will grab the gist for everyone so that you can go see what we built. We were looking at doing custom. I'll pop it in the chat there. It's custom layouts, multi-child layouts. Really simply, we're just doing basically overrun the layout function and showing how you can do that kind of cool stuff. Nice little trick.
I mean, I know Scott's making a couple of jokes there, but I mean, this is not an easy commitment to do this week in, week out, and do things like that. So, and especially specifics where it's helped you out. I always like hearing about it. It's always useful. So
you did which was it last week? There was the forced intrinsics one. Were you around for that?
Yes.
Did you have to go? I think you had to go.
I
go, Daniel.
Yeah, I always have
You
to
might
go.
want to check it out because it reminded me of that very first talk we had about intrinsics. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. 100% remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the question. I remember the question, but it was like, or I saw the question. Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually did end up making like a custom render object that forces a specific intrinsic width and height to be returned, so that you could measure things better. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that was actually really Simon and mine's first real interaction on a personal code kind of level. It had to do with intrinsic. I think it was
a long time ago.
Yeah, that was over 5 years ago.
It's not that. No.
Yes,
no. You're lying. It's
not. Okay, I understand.
We can judge the passage of time by how much hair Simon and I lose.
Deny, fervently deny.
That's right. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
It doesn't feel that long ago, does it?
It was before IO 19. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Forget that I've been doing Flutter since 2017. Late 2017.
Yep. That's crazy, isn't
it?
September 2017.
January
Simon
19.
got involved maybe a week after I did.
I'm a Flutter baby when it comes to the old timers because, January of 19. That's the end of January 19.
Wow. And there was a big influx of people during a lot of people in the community came in during March 2018 when beta came out, and there was another big influx in the lead up and at was it October December with
December 4th.
version 1. Version 1.
Yeah. Yep, December 4th.
All right, let's see what's next.
Yeah. So wait, you can always tell who's the older veterans in Flutter when you ask them about the days of Gitter.
I think it's still around. I think there's still something there.
Yeah, it is. It's Gitter is a single threaded chat that you get with every repo, and the Flutter team actually used theirs in the early days. There were PK? There were maybe 100 of us, something like that.
Those were those days. With
all right,
MTech Viral doing his YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Yep. We had a lot of people. You remember there was tensor programming. I used to watch his video.
TensorFlow.
I don't know where he went, but he was such a crazy guy. He used to do a lot of experiments himself.
Yeah.
And I
TensorFlow.
remember this.
Don't forget Brandon Donaldson. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, of course, there was also Matt Carroll doing Fluttery at the time.
Yeah.
Lawyers.
The yellow guy.
Yeah. It's a shame he had to take down his channel. All that content he made has disappeared.
Yes. Lawyers.
So annoying.
Great memories. I'm still surviving. Don't worry.
Right.
Matt took down all that great content under Fluttery, but something tells me that once you post something to the internet, it never dies.
Oh yeah.
So if you were
Someone's
to use some search called Google, maybe.
I'm sure you find it.
I think he started another channel, Super Declarative. He should have posted those.
Yeah. No. He's under Super Declarative, Matt Carroll.
Yeah, he's made new content.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't reuse the old stuff. Anyway, all right. I am doing HLS in Flutter in iOS, and it's working. But whenever I'm trying to go full screen on iOS with an iPhone or iPad, it's not going full screen. Well, that's Apple for you. I have tried with the native approach, but failed.
Okay. I think this follows up with the code snippet that was posted. Let me bring that up.
Is it also possible because
yes.
You might be missing one of the attributes in your info.p list? There is something called UI requires full screen, something like that. Things like that.
Let's just hide that for a second. This is the interesting though that this is a web-based, right? So let's make this bigger.
Yep.
So
talk about timing.
Yeah, so you've got it. So when the DOM content loads, you're trying to go full screen. You don't have to do this. Like, forget this, right? Don't put any JavaScript in there. You can use the web package to call these exact same functions, right? So that's why that's one thing I'd suggest, and it means that you can wait until actual Flutter's been bootstrapped. I suspect you're probably fighting against Flutter in some way, like maybe it's resetting the view and it's taking it out of the full screen system. Also, a lot of browsers require you to get the permission to go full screen, right? When you first try to go full screen, the browser also might be restricting the fact that this event, you need to go look up MDN, the Mozilla Development Network. But you'll probably find that to go full screen, it has to be from a user-generated event. That means from a user input, they have to click on something. There's quite a few events that happen in the browser. You cannot just initiate, like making video play on the outset doesn't normally work now. You have to like have a user-generated event to start it. There's some other things like that that are restricted. So I wonder if trying to just call enter full screen from the DOM content loaded event is just not going to work, right? The thing is, check the if you right click, you can go into like inspect in the inspector for your browser and check to see how if it's got any errors or what it logs when you do this. But yeah, if you use the Flutter web package, let's see if I can bring it up. Oh no, pub. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, so let me bring this over. Yeah, so the Flutter web package, and we look at the API reference. So that was at full screen. Yeah, on full screen, change, request full screen, request. I've already forgotten it. What was it on your thing?
He's also mentioning about can have a button which users click on it and then go to full screen.
I can have a button. We'll try it. It should be. It's interesting. Request full screen is not popping up here, but it should be. What we might have is an issue with
allow full screen. Yes.
No, that's for iframe. And you have the standard event, the actual standard events for it all. Huh. Well, I can tell you where it is because I've used it. Let's have a quick look and see if it's still in here. Yes. All right. So I think you should be raising a bug ticket on the web package repo. Follow the links to enable this API. You don't need to actually do this. You can still call this function using the JS interrupt. You can just call a function by name, given the object. As long as you've got an element which you can get with the query selector, then you're fine. So you should raise it though as an issue that they need to add it to the web package. I'm surprised, but yeah, it's obviously something's missing off of the what they've been generating. They actually do have, they're generating those packages off of, yeah. Or do what was that?
Request for link.
For the web package, sure. In the chat. And the Dart HTML package is what you probably want to be using since it has the request thing. But the idea is that they'll be phasing Dart HTML out in replacement with the web package. So since it doesn't have this feature, they will want to know so that people can start using the web package. So please raise an issue ticket. Follow the link in the pub package. It takes you to the Dart Lang repo, the web repo issues. So. Right. What's next?
Thank you for creating the gist.
Indeed.
Yes. Makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
How do you need to implement pull to refresh with a voiceover?
VoiceOver, yeah. I'm working on this kind of stuff now. I don't know the answer to this yet. And I'm having all kinds of issues.
I seem to remember how you do this. Hang on.
That'd be awesome.
I'm
Like
just trying to figure
now,
out, for those of us who don't understand, you're looking at a phone screen that is visual, but a voiceover is making a difference on pull to refresh. What's the context here?
you want it to read the screen again when you do that.
No, you want it to, like, when you pull to refresh, for it to say refreshing or
Mhm.
ready to refresh, and when you let go, refreshing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so so
Maybe
this
you
is
can
some.
use it some accessibility thing to do that.
Yeah, there is actually a
Yeah,
thing.
it's-
I'm trying to remember what it's called now.
Yeah, shouldn't it be built in?
Yeah,
There is a
Ron-
built-in thing. I'm trying to remember what it's called now.
Ron
feel
and
like
I are
it starts-
fighting this really hard right now, so it's
I
been
feel
a
like
lot
it's
of.
called strategy, or it starts with an S. I can't remember the hell the name is.
Semantic service.
Maybe.
Semantic service probably could maybe.
that
I
was
mean,
it.
for voiceover you can use it. I think they have this method called announce or something where you
Yeah,
can.
that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Let me see if I can bring it up. Oh, I mean, you know why it's not working? I'm in the Dart SDK going, why is it not resolving all my searches? Oh, yeah.
1 second, let me also take a look.
There you go, semantic service. And it has announce. There we go. So your semantic service, I think there's a singleton somewhere. I think you can get it from. Or is that static? Oh, static. There you go. So literally just
Static,
do wherever you are in your code, semantic service dot announce with the text message, and it will say it out loud. So you can actually have it so that when you pull to refresh, you just call that function, right? I don't know. I didn't even know that you got assertiveness. That's cool. Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, the problem you might have is that you don't know if you're not getting the events from pull to refresh for when it's ready to be refreshed and it's not announcing that, then obviously if there's no way of hooking into that from the existing code, then you'd have to do your own pull to refresh, right? Which you could take the existing widget and then just add this to it. It wouldn't be too difficult. Hopefully that helps, Paco. Anything from anyone else? Sorry, I just kind of dived in there, but that was what I was thinking of.
They actually, Paco actually followed up a little bit on that, saying the gesture to scroll with voiceover is a bit jank, and actually, but instead it's very jank, and not sure how to trigger it sometimes. Android does it well, iOS doesn't. So.
I mean, the fact of the matter is you can just choose when and announce, right? So it's quite nice that you've got like the option to be able to like do it however you want. But I suppose the difference is you have to do it yourself, right? So
Yeah, and the other thing I've had issues with things like that. The other thing I've had issues things like that have been like, okay, now I've got new things on there. How do I have it read them? Because there's no way to change, for example, where the accessibility focus is. There's things like that. So we were actually swapping out our page of content, and it was leaving the focus at the end. So
you're using web though, is it?
Yeah, it's on web. It is on web. That's true. But and there's things that we did where like if you put a key in the right place, then it's not the same content anymore. It knows things are up. So there's stuff like that. But it's a lot of thinking that we don't see necessarily documented very well. So that may be something I need to try to work on from my experiences with that, is trying to show what we went into.
A lot of people just don't know or use the semantics debugger. I mean, it blows my mind. That is, I think it shows semantics debugger in Material app. I think there's a flag for it. You just turn it on, boom. You've got like all the visuals that help you debug the semantic tree.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, that of course is interesting because, when you do that, it's following things through differently. It's not doing it exactly the same, running through your application, because it's.
I'm going to say yes and no. Someone says that yes, true, but that's probably because of web, right? Web itself brings a whole new like paradigm of problems. that you just don't get. Like with a native platform, you've got a lot more capability to debug and to examine and to understand. As much as the browser gives you, it's not the same as an app. It does just seem to be way more difficult.
Yeah. But then we're also having issues where it's not reading stuff at all on Mac. It does the title and then not the other stuff. So I'm still struggling with a lot of these things just to try to, figure stuff out. So I'll try to create some content once I do have it figured out and share with you all how I've gone about it.
Sounds good. Right, what's next?
Are there any code generation-based dependency injection libraries for Flutter like Dagger? Let me
Loads.
see here.
I mean, the question really is, there's a couple. So there's injection.dart or something like that, injector.dart. I seem to remember.
Injectable, I guess. Injectable.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yep.
I mean, the thing is, there's lots of these injectable.
There's one more I remember that is called Kiwi. Maybe you can take a look.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll bring it up on stream. It's all right. Let's bring it up.
It's not from New Zealand, no.
Simple yet efficient dependency injection container for Dart and Flutter can be coupled with Kiwi generator package. Dart 2 is required for this package. Wow.
That's a good
I think
one.
this has been around a little while.
I mean, it's very much like Get It, right? There's a difference. I think this is the difference, right? So you've got dependency injector like this, which is more akin to service locator, right? And then what you've actually got is you've got the Kiwi generator, which actually takes those relationships and then uses annotations to actually build the code and co-generate the injectable pieces, right? That's the same, by the way, for people that don't know, with what we're just talking about. Was it injectable? I've lost it, really. Let's go find it. Injectable. Yeah. So this is the code generator for Get It, essentially. So use Get It by long-time community member Thomas Burkhart. And then the injectable piece will actually generate the code. So again, the same thing. You annotate whatever you're trying to use, and then run your generator, and it will generate the code necessary to fulfill your interfaces. Yeah. So I mean, it's nice. I'll be honest with you, but I worry that I've seen it before. So when Dagger came, was it Dagger 2? It's a while ago. When Dagger 2 first, well, not even around it, but like injection frameworks, dependency injection just went nuts on everything. And everyone's like, just create your instances of things, and it will let you resolve all the dependencies for you. And it's a great idea, but I have a feeling like it just yeah. I mean, if your stuff is that complicated, I mean, I'm like, well, you probably need to clean up your code and actually make it less complicated. I'll be honest, I've never had to need, like in a Flutter, I've never had to need to use a dependency injector framework. PK?
Same.
Have you?
Same.
Yeah,
Never used.
I mean, there's the thing, right? Like I think there's an aspect of it. Use it if you want to use it. If you're used to using it, or if you're porting code that already has like a dependency injection system and you want to like keep it the same, makes sense, sure. But don't use it for the sake of using it, right? Right.
And funny thing is we've got so much dependency injection going on all over the place in Flutter, yet we don't need a framework.
Well, but the term dependency injection is just the idea of passing instances in of things you use in the constructor. This is composition as well, right? So the composition point is about the way it works together, but then dependency injection is the idea of passing those instances in during the constructor. And you don't need some code generator to do that, right? Sorry, Daniel.
Well, I was going to say, like, Randall is pointing out the fact he's used RiverPod for that. Which,
Yeah.
Sort of makes sense that Randall's the one saying that. But I was thinking the same thing. It's like, really all, if you can get your state to have the right stuff in it, however you're handling that, if you can get your state to have, these dependencies in it, you don't, getting it in there is pretty easy. I'm on my latest, product. It's coming in from a JSON configuration file on the back end. It's like it just comes on in, and I get all of my configuration, which is basically dependencies in this case. So
there's definitely a difference here, though. This the problem you've got with these dependency injection frameworks is the difference between having something statically linked and having it dynamically linked. What I mean by that is, like, if you create a bunch of singletons lazily in your code, and you've got places which try and grab that and then they instantiate those things at runtime, you've got essentially you can't debug that statically. You can't follow that in the code. You can't statically analyze that. That is a runtime dynamic use case for that, and that's probably what you want to avoid, right? Where I think, as Randall was saying, with the right RiverPod, the reason why you have those globals in RiverPod and the way that it links is that you're making that static linkage, right, at compile time, right? You can actually make those references. It makes it a lot easier to debug these situations. I mean, I've done it before when you've got like something like a dependency injection framework and you've got it all dynamically sort of linking up. It's really hard to chase down what happened before what and what the timing is and what depends on this other thing. You can't, because it has to be like runtime. You're never doing it. You can't really follow it in the code. So yeah. Anyway, rant over.
I don't have another question in me because I've got a meeting that got scheduled for me at the top of the hour.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, I can start this one too.
I think I'm going to go ahead and run. I'm going to miss next week, so I will see you all in a couple weeks. But if any of you are in Berlin, please make sure you come up to me because I would love to have a selfie with any of you.
Yes.
And sorry about those of us that don't have visas to make it to Berlin.
I think Randall should join us on stage, shouldn't you, Randall?
Yeah,
I was supposed to be in Berlin, but I'm going to be at the beach instead. The family has ideas of where I need to be.
Oh no, what a shame. Right. All right. Thank you, Danielle. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.
Bye.
All right. Last one for me. Post Slava. He indicated that you lose tree shaking with some of the third-party packages. How do I determine if such a package does not support or will cause loose tree shaking?
John, it'd really be interesting for you to maybe give us a bit more reference on that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is the Johan I know. Something also okay, hang on. Do these go together? Randall, you're watching chat. Gonzalo makes a comment, and then Verde says that also breaks tree shaking. Think that's related?
I don't know. I think it's if you can turn a string into a symbol, but I don't know that you can do that.
I mean, he indicates you can't lose tree shaking. No matter what third-party package comes in, you can't lose tree shaking. I think this might be more about plugins, and I can explain that a bit more.
Yeah.
So let me explain.
He's mentioning universal platform. I think that's a plugin, right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, universal platform.
Yeah, I think there is one. I think this is the G one, right?
Yeah.
Broken tree.
Why you use that? I mean, why you have to use that? I don't know.
Well,
I mean, it's because I mean, you cannot use platform dot something, but then you can use the other way of identifying the platform. You don't have to use platform class.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Universal
But this
okay.
Slow down. So let me. Okay, I think I know what's going on, and let me explain. So, nothing breaks tree shaking, right? So tree shaking is a compiler technique to remove code that you're not referencing. Here's the key. You're not referencing, right? Now, if you have an if condition that's looking at like the contents of a variable and deciding to go down one code path or another, it doesn't tree shake both. It doesn't tree shake the one out that you're never using because it doesn't know until it's running. So both have to be included, right? So imagine like an if and an else, right? Now, if so, this is if the if if statement contains a constant expression, right? Then that's known at compile time, and then the tree shaking will reduce and remove the else condition. So this is an example. This is Dart defines K debug mode, K profile mode, all those kind of things, because they come from Dart defines the environment that is known at compile time, that's injected by the compiler, or by the framework, and it will know that when I'm compiling this debug, then therefore I include this piece and don't include this piece, right? And it will not include that whole part of the chain. Hold your question there for just 1 second, Scott, 1 second. Right, so that's like how tree shaking works. When it comes to plugins and packages, you have a similar problem, right? So you have a plugin interface, right? So that's like your platform interface for your method channel, right? It has all the functions you can call. You do invoke method on the Dart side. On the native side, it has all the switch statement with all the different functions. Now, the problem is, again, you cross that divide to the native platform. The Dart code cannot know which function you're calling, right? Like it will remove the Dart piece, right? So let's say you've got 5 functions in your method in your platform interface, and you only call one of them, right? Those 4 Dart functions that call invoke method will be removed, but only the Dart code, because it can't remove them from the unreferenced native code, right? The native code is going to contain all that functionality, even though you never called it, right? That's another example of breaking tree shaking. Well, it's not breaking tree shaking, but not allowing it to take place, right? And there's things in place that are trying to. There's ways that you can try and fix that, but yeah, I just want to express that point that these are potential issues. Now, if you do want to get rid of that native code, for example, on Android, you use ProGuard or DexGuard, and you can say, I want to remove these functions and these features, and it will do the tree. It will do the sort of a removal tree shaking. It compiles it and then removes them. It's a weird thing that the way that the Android compiler works, right? But yeah. Anyway, go on. Sorry, Scott.
Just to dig into this a little bit more, you mentioned that if there is an if else and the if is a constant, it will get rid of the else in the tree shaking, obviously, because the else is never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's constant. That if it's true, for example, if it was false, then it would be the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was about to ask, because let's say, what is it? It's K is debug, like K is web.
Yeah.
Okay. If K is
it's
bang,
debug mode,
not debug. Yeah. If it's bang, not debug mode, right? Then
still
print or then print this thing. If it is debug mode, then debug print something else. So we got a regular print and a debug print, let's say.
Yeah.
If it is not debug mode, that's a constant. So you compile and it's going to do the if and get rid of the else. Because when you compile, it's when you actually compile.
Well, if it's compiled in debug mode, it'll do one. If it's compiled in not debug mode, i.e. profile or release mode, it will do the other, right?
Right. Well, here's the thing. Can you keep the else and get rid of the if? Because you're talking about getting rid of the else. No, you said get rid of the else and keep the
whatever
path in the reverse work.
Whatever path you take at compile time is this side that's kept. The other code is never compiled. That's the point. Right. At compile time, you already know which of the two legs.
Yes.
Yeah. At compile time, you know which of the 2 legs it's taking. And only the leg that it's taking will be compiled. The other will be discarded.
But that only happens with constant expressions, right? If you've got a variable that isn't constant, then of course it has to keep it all because it doesn't know what the value will be until it runs the code. This is what we say about compile time is compiling it.
I guess what happened was when you said that, it made it sound like if you have an if and the constant is in the if, you'll keep the if and get rid of the else.
When I say
But then the
it,
question is, could the
no,
reverse
no. I
work?
think again, let me be clear. I'm talking about the actual conditional expression, right? It doesn't
Yes.
have to be an if statement. It could be other things, right? I'm giving an if statement as an example of saying that if the expression, the conditional expression that the if statement is evaluated on, right, results in a constant expression, then it will know at compile time what that value is, and it doesn't need to include the rest, so it can discard it. Doesn't make it. Doesn't mean if it's true or false, right? Doesn't matter. The same. So there's actually a constant expression propagation, right, in the compiler.
Mhm.
So that's what you just want to be clear about this for people. That's what happens when you do the bang, right? So when you put the not symbol in front of a constant expression, it knows that the flip that expression joined together is still constant,
Yes.
right? And it can propagate the constantness up, right? So
And
that only happens to a certain degree, obviously, but if you as soon as you run a function, it's all out because it's running code, right? But
it applies in a lot more places than you think too, because I think
Mm.
even Switch knows how to do const
Yep.
switches.
and all the pattern matching stuff as well. If you have constant expression patterns, Yeah.
Right.
so it's basically anything that can be constant and expressed at compile time. It's one of the reasons why you want. So another thing, it's one of the reasons why you have. You either have Dart defines, we should have them anyway, for like pushing stuff into your compiler rather than like runtime parameters being read. Maybe if you can know stuff at compile time, for example, like a free version or a demo version or something like that, if you can push in your value as a Dart define, then you'll know at compile time what code should be included. So you could like get rid of all themes and like a bunch of other stuff or logos and whoever knows whatever else. There's also what was I going to say? Yeah, you have different entry points. That's another thing. So you might have main dev.dart, main test.dart, main prod.dart, whatever. And if you're targeting one of those things, that's the start of the tree, right? So when it analyzes the code, it's going from that target entry point, which means if you don't include something as a parameter and maybe in your run app in one of the other ones, then that's not going to be included in your code because it's not referred anywhere from that point down the tree onwards, right? If somehow you decided to refer to one of those other files, obviously, it's going to happen, right? But or functions in one of those other files. But yeah, in generally, having different entry points and different targets is good, and using Dart defines.
Alrighty. With that, I'm going to run away. You all have a great day. And PK, it's great to see you again. Come out more often.
Come out and play.
You never call. You never write. Simon and I are worried sick.
I'm not. I was working with PK recently on some stuff. So good.
Yeah.
All right. You all have a great time, and I will see you next week.
Cool.
Sure, man. See you.
So I guess I'm driving now, right?
Sure. That universal platform. I just want to take before we jump off of it. The universal platform. The idea about that is great, but again, the results of that are not a constant expression. So again, this is probably what people were saying. I can't remember who the question was last the name is, but that's the problem that they were trying to explain. It's because you're using a function. The result of that function has to be expressed at runtime and not at compile time. So whereas if it's a constant, like physical constant expression, like in platform, then it will. But then you can make that choice yourself without a library like this, right? Like you can actually do. I don't know how this library works, so I'm not going to go into it. But this may be okay. But if you use what's the imports that you can flip between conditional imports, something like that, right?
Yeah. Conditional imports.
Called conditional imports, right? But you can put an if statement as part of your import, and then that way you can say, "Oh, only include this code or the other," but they can still have the same interface, the same thing, but it would be a different variable. I guess you could make the constantness, I think, is broken at that point. Yeah, it's probably why this doesn't work. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Let's see what else we can go to.
Moving on. So, hey, people, I'm making a search field in my app bar with an
Oh no, we
overlay.
did that
Add
one.
this
That's no, skip that one. That's the one we're keeping for later.
Oh, okay. All right.
If he comes back to us.
And this one too? No, we just did this one too, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Next.
So it's the next one here. Why Flutter Web can't be pinch zoomed in browser window? Isn't it an important accessibility feature?
It can. There you go.
Well, why is this saying it can't?
It's not being. It's because by default it's in desktop mode, right? You can pick to see if your device is a tablet and then running a web page and then run the touch input. Let me dig out the bit of code you need. I actually had this for reference. When was it?
Oh, and just a hint to people asking questions, if you have to have a part 1 and a part 2, that's too complex for this show.
Never. Nothing's ever too complicated.
Well, I'm just saying, people who put these long-winded, two-parted things, just warning the person who's about to do that.
I think there's also about there's as we said before, Brandon. I think we've spoken about this because we answered quite a few questions online. It's about thinking about your question and wording it right. Thinking about like from a perspective of someone who doesn't have any context. Get the key facts across, right?
Yep.
What the hell was I looking for again? Oh god, I just lost it. What was the question? It was the pinch zoom. Yes.
Yeah.
Why can't I find it? So this is gonna bug the hell out of me. Literally was looking at this not that long ago. I think I know where it was now. Hang on. I think I put this in a gist somewhere as well. So in Material App, you can give Material App a scroll behavior. Let me go dig this up on and share this. So you can conditionally change that scroll behavior, right? So let's bring this up on the stream. Does it give you any information? It does. Well, kind of. Right, where's the link? Hang on. There we go. So yeah, so the Material App widget at the top level has a parameter called scroll behavior. I wonder if we can get the default scroll behavior of this application. Oh, so helpful. Yeah, describes how scroller widgets should behave, and this describes like how they should be displayed, like overscroll indicators and so on, but also how they interact with the user input. And what you can do is you can extend the scroll behavior and change the drag devices here. And you can set this pointer device kind to touch as well as mouse. But by default, this will flip based on the links here, like trackpad, things like that, right? You need to return back the list of devices that you want to support for touch input, for scrolling. And scrolling includes gestures like that, right? You can follow it down. We could follow it down the tree, and we could probably demo it maybe if you want. But yeah, it's because of scroll behavior. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I've actually got a. See if I can pop this up on a gist for you. Bear with. Super simple to do this kind of stuff.
Sure.
Nothing's ever. Why does nothing ever want to load for me? Come on. Sorry, give me a second.
My hair keeps falling into my eyes because this is the longest my hair gets ever. Tomorrow is my haircut. I hate that. I hate having hair in my eyes. distraction.
No one wants extra hair in their eyes.
True. Yeah, that IDX stuff was fun. Yeah, I need to play with it more. But apparently you can pull in an entire Git repo and it analyzes the entire repo. So you can ask questions of Gemini Chat about the entire overall application. And it will correctly identify what's doing where, how well your test coverage is, all sorts of good stuff. Yeah.
That's not a good idea, I guess, to give all your
Coming
code
to
base to
replace-
Gemini.
Yeah.
They're coming to replace us. We're not going to be needed again. You know, I was telling somebody the other day, every 20 years with the next computer revolution, they've always said, well, that will wipe out most of us programmers. Really? And it's never happened. We just end up doing more with all the stuff we have.
So yeah, so those that here is, I posted just in the chat, but it's just this, right? That's the entire code right there. Yeah, it's so complicated, right? So I want to accept touch, mouse, and trackpad input when scrolling. There you go, done. I mean, you can do it conditionally, right? So if you can choose to use that the parameter on Material App based on what platform you're on, right? So if you don't have a mouse input when you're on a touch one, if you want, but you can just say you accept all three. Should be fine in pretty much every situation. If it's not, change it. But you have we have the power. We have the power.
Cool.
Right.
Cool.
What's next?
All right. Next. Is it possible to have a nested navigator, but keep the nested navigator state if the whole widget tree rebuilds? I tried restorable push along with restoration scope ID, but with no luck.
There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to have it, I guess. I mean, the thing is, you don't. What you actually want to do is just. I think navigators automatically just restore their scope. So, if you have your navigator, your child navigator, your inner navigator in a widget, in a stateful widget with restorable mixin, then give it a scope ID and then you give your navigator widget a scope ID, and it will say the navigator state in that. And then your scope ID on the outside one can be based off of maybe the branch that you're in. So maybe have 3 different or 4 different tabs, each one with its own navigation stack. Then each one will have to have its own scoped ID that's separate. I don't see a reason why I wouldn't restore it. You just don't need. Yeah, I mean, you need to be using. All your routes need to have names that you push to them, and then you need an on-generate route function on your navigator so that it can restore everything correctly. I feel like there's actually a navigator actually has. If I remember right, it's a while. Navigator actually has some special behavior for restoring, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you can use this restorable push named route rather, and then I think it should work because the restoration bucket should give you the that state itself.
The thing is, you don't need to use restorable. I don't think you don't need to use restorable push to have a route that's restorable, I'm sure. No, say that. I'm not sure now. I'm looking at it, but I'm pretty sure you don't. I mean, it has to be. The difference is the route has to have a name.
But if you don't use the restorable one, then how the state restoration, how it will register it?
That's what I'm trying to say. The name of the route, the settings name of the route, that gets then put back to on generate route.
Yeah.
That's how it was working before. Last time I looked at it, but it was a while ago. Oh, look, it actually has. Hang on, and literally, look, I'm looking at the docs now. There's in Navigator state restoration. Provide scope surrounded with a valid. When surrounded by a valid restoration scope, the navigator will restore its state. This is what it's saying. So you need to have your navigator widget inside a stateful widget that has the restorable mixing, right? That provides a scope then for everything inside. In return to not all routes in the stack can be restored. Page-based routes restore their state. If page.restoration ID is provided. So that's one thing to know. Routes added with the imperative class push named and friends can never restore their state. There you go. Good to know. And then added with a restorable imperative API, restorable push, restore named can also work.
And the continuation is.
Hang on, let's just read this. A route is deemed restorable if navigator sets its if the navigator will set its route.restoration scope ID to a non-null value, routes can use the ID to store that and restore their own state. For example, modal route will store its ID in the restoration scope. Yeah.
And the follow-up is so I need the restorable mix-in. Are there any examples?
I think restorable mix-in actually has an example. I think we actually did it the other week. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, Randall, when we did the restorable state stuff.
I wasn't here 2 weeks ago.
No, maybe it was 3 weeks ago. It was me and you. I'm sure it was on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah. Now I can't find the mix-in. Restorable mix-in. I swear it was restorable mix-in.
Restoration mix-in?
Maybe restoration.
Restoration mix-in is the one.
That's the one. I was close.
Call. Good call.
Yeah. I think this has got an example in it. Yeah. There you are. Code. When it render, zoom out. There you go. Yeah. So you just add in, where is it? In your on your state, you just add with restoration mix-in, and that's it. And then you override restoration ID and provide your ID. You can also just wrap your widget in the restoration scope, restorable scope.
Yeah, I think you can directly maybe just you can wrap it your my app with this as a root, right?
Well, is this about providing the key here is providing a restoration ID that things inside can be scoped to, can be saved under. They have their own IDs, but they need to be grouped into like a bucket, right? Yeah, restorable scope inserts a restoration bucket into the widget tree. There you go.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
I'll put that in. I'll put those two things in the chat for links for if anyone's interested in looking it up. But yes, you do. Yeah. Well, on each page, yes. Any route has to have a restoration ID. That's how it knows how to restore it.
Yes.
Oh. And the next question, I think, is going to be answerable with a very simple response. Can we have the intro to GSOC 2025 from the Dart organization? We don't work for Google.
Yeah, we don't work for Dart team or for Flutter. We're just community people,
community leaders,
community friends, community.
The closest anybody on this call is to Google is that you and I are GDEs, which means we are community liaisons. We do not work.
I disagree. You are the closest physically to Google.
I'm in the same time zone anyway. That's the important.
You're definitely the closest. You're way closer than London or India.
Yes, very likely. Okay, well that's good. So that's that.
But truthfully, if we do, we normally hear about Google Summer of Code related to Dart and Flutter, and when we do, we'll probably be talking about it here on the channel, as well as probably bringing something on and starting it off. Like it's stuff we've done before on the channel. So
yeah, we assist with being able to get that out to the community, but that's about all we're doing here. All right, next question. I have a data table which takes more space than the device width and height. Okay, how can I render only part of the screen? Didn't we have this last week or 2 weeks ago?
No, how can I only render? How can I only render part of screen? Because
why want to?
Data row,
Why want to use a paginated data table? for these.
Oh,
kind of
again,
stuff.
it's more about. I think we did have this. I think it was Rutvik that actually brought this up a couple of weeks, and we did answer it then, Rutvik.
Yeah.
The point here is you can't use data table for that, and the reason why you can't use it is let me give an example, and it's the reason why a lot of spreadsheets fail on this. Right? You've got a column in a spreadsheet, right? You have lots of different values. They're all lots of different widths, right? Now, what you can do is you can say select this column and then double click on the separator, and it will say size this column to the width of the content, the intrinsic width, right? But to do that, it literally has to go through every single cell in that entire column to work out what is the biggest one and render every single one, even when it's not on screen. Okay. Now we take it back to data. Now we take it back to data table where you rendering the columns, right? The reason why you don't have an infinite scroll thing is because as you scroll, those columns will be changing their sizes all over the place, right? Because the content is coming in and changing because you don't have the content that doesn't exist on the screen, right? So that's why you don't get that type of scrolling. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do that, but you won't be able to do it with the data table widget. What you want is two-dimensional scrollable, which is now part of the framework. Yeah, two-dimensional scroll view. Which
is it there?
Yeah.
Oh, I have never used it.
Yeah. So two-dimensional. So basically, the same principles of having a scrollable and a viewport and child delegate that we have in the normal one-dimensional scroll, we now have in two-dimensional scroll. So this allows you to provide, where is it, child delegate, and you can have a builder, and in the builder function you get child vicinity, and this is how you know what position the X and Y, you know where you are and what you need to render, right? So you can return back a different widget.
Or it's something which was added recently.
This is newish. I mean, it's been about a year now, I think.
Yeah, it was last year's.
Good candidate for widget of the week, I guess. I don't know, like whether they have covered.
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, if you want to do any sort of two-dimensional scrolling, yeah, this is obviously this is where you want to go. You can also obviously customize this and do all sorts of fun things. But yeah, for the most part, two-dimensional scroll view, that'll do the job that you're looking for. Yeah,
I have seen people using multiple scroll views, you know, one for horizontal axis, one for vertical axis.
Like it's the worst. It's the because they don't interact, right? So what you once you start scrolling in one dimension, it steals the scroll from the other dimension, and you can't get it back into the other dimension. You have to stop tapping and then tap again, and make sure you scroll vertically. Otherwise, the horizontal will stop. It's
terrible.
Like, yeah.
Anyway, cool.
And people are like, why does kind of just work? It's like it does. Just using it wrong. I think there's to be fair. To be fair, the whole gesture stuff is really complicated. People just take touch for granted. It's super complicated. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. And by the way, we've cut off questions at this point, so don't come back in 166 hours and ask your questions. But we'll take everything else we've got. We've got about 6 more in the queue. When shall we use dependency injection? I think we probably beat this to death already. I'm confused because I thought it was mandatory to properly manage the app state. There's mixing up a couple of different motifs. Yes.
Right. So
this is people getting two concepts sort of glommed together that aren't really directly related, but yeah. So
yeah. How do I untangle this? Right. So dependency injection is just that. This object over here depends on this object over here. So I'm going to hand it to it in its constructor. So when it's built, it always has a reference to what it needs. Right. That is dependency injection in a nutshell. Is there a better way of explaining that, guys? I think that's as simple as I can get it, right?
Yeah. It's a rendezvous. The problem is they need each other. They got to find each other somehow. And what mechanisms are there to be able to do that?
Do you know what's really funny is when you get a circular dependency, your requirement to have a circular dependency in your code. So most people get that wrong as well and just think you can't do it. It's no, what you do is you hand a function. It's called a lambda. In this case, you're handing a function that provides the glue logic to then use a late variable, right? So that you can actually then join things that reference each other, but they're created at different times, because one will be late at the beginning and one will not, and then you refer to the a function that will load the previous one. So yeah, you can do that, and that's the bring high order of functions are just wonderful. Anyway, come on. Right.
There are some interesting tricks in Dart Petit Parser about how to deal with rules that reference other rules, which reference back to the first rules, and they have ways of having placeholders that hold out until everything's all defined. Pretty weird stuff.
It reminds God, this reminds me of my compiler days, building compilers.
Okay, that's enough of that one.
Go on.
Here's the big old two-parter. So part one, part of the first part. I want a persistent overlay, even while route transition. And I'm keeping material app that provides the overlay at the very top of the widget tree, and wrap the app's root material app. Part two, child material app will wrap the overlay provider, but I'm curious about the gotchas. Oh, it's just freaking complex. I wouldn't want to maintain your code. Is there anything I should be aware of? Yeah, you're building something that's going to trip somebody up. That's maintaining your code.
How you are accessing the build context, I want to know.
Here's the thing. I know that you can put a material app inside a material app, but why? Right, that's the thing. But why? I think that's the real problem here. You're getting that that you've got a material app inside a material app. I'm trying to keep a material app and provide overlay. I honestly, I couldn't even begin. You're just causing yourself more problems for I don't know what reason. Anything that material app provides, you could do. Like you could stick a different theme in there widget. You could stick a different localization widget. You could stick whatever you want. Like you don't need material app. I mean, you want a navigator? Use a navigator. You don't need material app to do that. So I think that you're going to have there's collisions that you get with doing that as well that are just not worth thinking about.
Isn't
like the title of the app?
Also, you will lose the context in the child material app, right? If once a route is initiated from the parent material app, right? I mean,
well, that's I mean, yeah, I mean, but that's just navigators, right? So that's the same with child navigators. But the difference is you can make them restorable, right? You can still use a restorable scope.
This might help.
I won't do it.
That you can use a builder.
Just know that.
Yeah. You use a builder with a stack to basically lay out what you want to do too. So
I mean, there could be other ways also, but having multiple material apps, I don't know why. I mean, it's like creating a problem which you want to solve later.
I need to read this again. I want a persistent overlay even while route transition, and I'm keeping material app that provides the overlay. So this is the problem. It's probably because you've got I see what you're trying to do here. Why does it use an overlay widget?
Yeah.
You don't need a material app. You can put your material app, keep the one that's your child material app, add your one. And if you're trying to just do an overlay, so the idea that when you navigate stays there, then you could do that, put an overlay. But as I can't remember which the message came from now. The other person in chat said, yeah, you can do that with a stack. So the builder parameter of material app, it provides you a child widget. That is the navigator. That is all the router. That is everything that happens within your app. Now you can wrap that in a stack. You can wrap that with whatever you want. And that's how you might do like a bottom navigation. The difference here is that, there may be certain things that you can't do from that bottom navigation. So you might have a key, right? But, definitely don't do wrapping twice. Anyway, I'll remove those questions.
Yeah. Okay. Get those.
There's the next one. Go on.
Yeah. I have a question that's troubled with a geolocator library. Once I install it before using it, when I try to run the app on Android, it shows Kotlin errors, even if I change the Kotlin version. Oh, that's always exciting stories.
I mean, the question here is it working? Yes, then it's not a problem. I mean, he hasn't said that. He's got trouble with it. Like, it doesn't mean that he's saying it's showing errors, but it doesn't mean it's not working or that it's showing errors, because you will get errors and warnings from like native code that is not an error or warning, right? Like it may be expressed as such, but actually it's not a problem, right?
I've noticed Android's a lot more noisy in their basic debug logs than iOS is. iOS is pretty quiet unless something really weird is happening, and Android seems to want to tell you about every little thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I prefer iOS or like Android logs. I mean, it's better than iOS any day.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
the thing is, the other side of that is it's not noisy, sure, but then you don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
I mean, pick your poison, right? I think I mean the problem here, Orion, we don't know what the error is, so we couldn't even give you remotely an answer about what that might be.
Maybe just go through your this Kotlin versions and all those things. Most likely, those are the reasons these things does not.
Yeah, I mean, I would also suggest that if you're searching for answers, do not be searching Flutter. Right, you want to be searching for Kotlin or Android errors. Literally, if you go to Stack Overflow and search Android having problem with this, thing, you'll probably get the problem, the answer come up. But yeah, without knowing exactly what the error is, maybe you can, if you're still here, put like the line of error in the log, and maybe we can direct you to a better answer. But yeah, I think that's about it. We can do.
Okay, and our final question for the day is there any package or way which will generate necessary test cases for the app? Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Boop, boop. Make my test. Boop.
Gemini is there for you. That's what I can say. Not I mean, it can do certain things if you provide it a good guidance that how you want it to generate, but then you have to do some work, right?
Have a package that you can annotate any class with @test this.
So I think I'm going to say that you want to be looking at running code coverage. So if you do a code coverage report, at the end of it, you'll see what lines were covered by tests and what lines were not. And then you can then go, oh, I'm going to go write tests to cover these lines. Like, oh, it didn't go down that path to show an exception. I'm going to give it the incorrect thing and cover a test that covers when I throw the error. And you can start getting yourself an idea about what test cases you should be writing. But yeah,
I do that.
Yeah, it's a good way of doing it, right? The thing is, the answer is, you need to get the testing mindset. If you're not used to testing or writing test cases, it's obviously hard to get a starting point. And I think the only way you can do that is by looking at other people's work and then having a starting point. I think the coverage stuff is quite nice for a visual starting point. Just remember, there is a complete test repo in, I think it's Flutter/test, which has but tons and tons of tests, and all of the Flutter widgets and all the Flutter code is covered by tests. So you can go look at those and how do you do it, right? And that's all stuff that you can see. Yes, yeah,
yes.
Both and also IntelliJ has the same thing, right? You can get code coverage on your gutter lines, yeah. So you can see which lines are covered and which lines aren't.
And another thing that's important is to learn about testing. Is that once you start having to write tests, once you actually write tests, you'll start to change the way you write your code, because it'll become more modular. It'll become more functional, data in, data out, because you learn that your complicated, mixed up methods, there's no way to actually get tests, inject things that aren't dependency places. You learn how to write better code by writing tests.
What's your view about Patrol, Simon? Have you used that?
Patrol? Yes, I like Patrol. Yeah.
I like it.
For those that don't know what we're talking about, there's a package called Patrol built by Lean Code. It's a group of an agency in Poland that are doing Flutter development, and they built this to solve their own problems with integration tests. So when it comes to integration tests with Flutter, just using the normal stuff, you're fine. You can just press any buttons, do anything, all remotely. The way this works, just want to be clear about this because again, people don't understand the difference. An integration test is you start up some code on your machine. It starts up the app on your emulated device or your real device, and it runs your test cases on the device, not on your local machine like we do unit tests or local tests, but on the device. And then the result of that is pushed back down to your device, so you can see like what happened during that test. The problem here is so the whole thing. When that happens, it's great, but the means that you need to write code that has a finite set of operations that you can do, like tap button, move screen, scroll screen, whatever the operations are, and that works with Flutter because it's a known quantity. However, how do I debug that the permission pop-up popped up on my Android app, and I need to press OK on the permission pop-up for my test to continue? Because it's running on a real device or whatever, and that's where Patrol comes in. So Patrol will let you interact with the native platform a little bit better, and wraps up in a nice bundle, basically. That would be my succinct thing. Yeah. Go on.
Another thing to look at is property testing. There's this package called GLaDOS, the name from the Portal game, and it does patterns in the sense that if this function is supposed to take two numbers and return back a string, you can say that's the pattern for this, and it will find the boundary cases where it doesn't do that. It's really amazingly bizarre to watch running, but it does all sorts of pattern testing to resolve things. So this is different from writing specific test cases where you're just trying, I give it 1 and 2 and I get the string 12, 1, 2 string. You basically define shapes of data that get fed in and the expected shape of the data to coming out. And it will find the boundary cases for where that doesn't work anymore.
It's nice. I do see that, but equally, you could do an expect on greater than or less than and stuff like that. I mean, like, I see the purpose of this, right? And it's nice, but then you can also, what happens if you're too open with your thing, or you're too close and it's a failing case gets through?
This is not just instead of normal cases. This is as a just kind of do my invariance hold? Mm-hmm. Because that's also important to have the invariance.
I find it interesting. It's quite nice, but until I use that, I wouldn't know the real applicability. Yeah. So I think about what it's doing. I'm like, well, you can make matches that do those things, right? And then, you don't really need a library to do it.
It's matches on steroids, basically. I first discovered it in the FP Dart package. And it's great because he gets to keep trying. Okay, I know that this property needs to be the result of these other two properties. And it finds if there are edge cases that he didn't consider.
There is isn't there so I'll bring this up. This is like the let's hide that current question. Yes, this is the matcher library from the standard Flutter test suite. Yeah, so that matches anything, matches this, matches that, and this is the way that you can like use expect with the matchers to say, okay, I expect this not to be nan or not to be empty on this or that or the other, and you can also write your own, and then you can then join them together, all of, any of, and so on and so forth. There's lots and lots of these, right? I feel like I've seen like a few different libraries out there that actually make their own matches, and like it's just like a set of matches that you can add to improve your tests. I'm trying to remember the name of them now. Does it ring any bells?
You can probably look for all the ones that depend on matcher.
That's good. That's a good point. Let's see if we can do that.
We have the technology.
We have the technology. well, they rebuilt you, mate. What we got here? Mocktail, yeah. Dart Code Builder.
Oh, everything depends on
Matcher, right?
though.
But let's have a look. Mockingjay. Ooh.
Oh, Mockingjay from VGV.
Never used
Mock
it, but
Navigator.
sounds interesting.
Freeze, Makito, Test, Quiver.
Quiver.
May have been in
I think
Quiver,
you're
you know.
I
Quiver,
think
I
you're
know.
finding every package in the world, because every package in the world ultimately depends on Matcher.
You will have a long list.
Yes, right.
Okay. I guess there's a utility for that. Time machine. Times and calendars, cultures, formatting, and parsing. I was experiencing this the other day. I was working on something and I just wanted date. You know the whole thing you were doing, remember, Randall, with the getting rid of the time, like making a date again. I just want the date. I don't want the current time. And then I had to you have to provide all three of the parameters separately. And I was like, what I really want is a date time system that allows you to use like records to fill in like the different sets of fields or something nice like that, right? It does kind of annoy me that we still don't have. I feel like the current date time system can be improved, but I know it can be a minefield as well for the developer, right? So,
well, the problem was we inherited the JavaScript version as art, and so it
that's
all
crap,
kind of
right?
ties back to whatever JavaScript kind of had broken over the years.
Has someone gone and ported another backend framework? Is this a port of?
There was something like Angel earlier also,
look.
right?
Yeah. No, what was it? Was it? What was Angel? What was it? There was like another original framework, wasn't there? I don't remember the name of it now.
I think it
Aqueduct?
was
This is Angel. Was it Angel?
Angel
No.
only, right? Yeah, man.
No, this is his packet. This is his one.
The back
That's
end.
interesting. That ORM authentication GraphQL. Want to put an API? Go for it. Anyway, I'm sure that there's tons of stuff in here. I'm just like perusing now. Content menus. There's so many like packages, and it's great. Like you find something. Conduit, yeah. Conduit is the Conduit. Aqueduct, that's the one. It used to be called Aqueduct, and then Aqueduct was shut down. Conduit started up as a replacement for that. But if you remember rightly, I was having a look at this, and you can't ahead of time compile the result, the Conduit, because it depends on reflection.
Is it by the same team, or they have like someone else has just forked
This
it?
is someone else. This is I don't remember their name. This is someone else that they took over. They forked the original project once it shut down.
Okay. Stable kernel is not doing
but
it.
It basically still has things in there from Dart 1. Well, when I last looked at it, it was 6 months ago now, I think, at least. But yeah, I don't think it's moved probably that far. So, ooh,
I don't know. I wanted Aqueduct to do better when they.
Yeah, I mean, it was so early though, right? I mean, like, do you know what? What was I reminded of the other day? Here, do we want to go for some before we call it? Should we go for some legacy chat here? Here's something that I want. Here's something that I wonder if Randall remembers.
Dartino.
Does that ring any bells, Randall?
No, vaguely.
So Dartino, I think it's here like MitMit. This was done by the Dart team, and it was think Arduino, right? Embedded framework. This is a there's a description of it somewhere, I'm sure. Oh yeah, an experiment seeking to improve productivity when writing application code for embedded devices.
Oh, that's why I never got it. I'm not.
This was like early on, so like Raspberry Pi and other things, and actually allowing you to control the hardware and some of the other deeper stuff with Dart. And it's like, accessing like flash SD cards and memory cards from Dart and also other fun stuff. And this was all really early on. This was like 8 years ago. And I found it really interesting because they've got like FFI in here. look, FFI for using like an LCD screen. Let's look at this, right? And it's like foreign function types and everything like that. And this was all to do all this kind of like FFI stuff 8 years ago. like it was so like revolutionary for its time, and I'm like, I want this to come back. Yeah.
Things have changed a lot.
It was that's the problem. Is like it's great for reference, but you couldn't take that and compile with it now. You couldn't take that and like it's just the language and everything has changed so much. And such a large project, it probably is just not worth probably taking that as it is and moving it over. But there's definitely things to be learnt from it, right?
Right. Obviously, it can be observed as original code, and then you can code alongside it, or just teach an AI to fix it, and then have the AI fix it.
There are some old videos also. It still makes a lot of sense about the architecture, about the some other inner workings of Flutter, Dart. I mean, there are a lot of good videos.
Yeah. This is interesting that Dart archive. So this is all 132 repositories of archive Dart packages made by the official teams that were separate packages. Like Wasim here was a separate package at one point, right? And now it's been integrated.
Angular Dart is still going on, or what happened?
No. The public package has been discontinued, right? So now it's now well, they've moved it elsewhere here as Angular, but even this one was shut down. Where was it? I'm trying to remember where it was now. Hold up. So someone, there you go, has risen to a community project. Yay! Angular Dart. Yes. Hold up. Kevin Moore and Gary Bonus. But I mean, yeah, like whatever way you look at this kind of stuff, it's great. But yeah, there's I know there's stuff to be learned from all these things, right? And obviously, all these things are not dead necessarily. They've just been rehoused. Like a lot of these packages still exist, but they've changed their names or they've moved around. And I'm sure you'll find something of interest in here if you've got reference. But yeah, I just want to share that.
Cool.
Right, I don't think did Zatli I can't say his name. Zlati come back with a answer to our question. I don't think so.
Hey people, I'm making a search field in my app bar with an overlay. Select handle under the overlay. Any suggestions? Are you going to try to fix that, or are you waiting for more stuff?
I mean, we could have a go at just doing something like that and show how it could be done.
I've got a hard out
coding. Sorry,
I have a hard out in 10 minutes anyway. So
let's call it then. Let's call it. I think last stream we did some. I'm not doing. I'm not holding up my end of the bargain regarding live streaming. I keep saying it, but I just don't seem to find the time. If I can, I will, and I will post it. So be sure to follow us on our various handles on Twitter, and be sure to follow the channel on GitHub and everything else. And then you'll get our announcements and everything else. Anything you want to add, PK, or mention?
Yeah, he's got something to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to talk about the ebook which I recently launched. I want you guys to try it out once. So it's called Flutter Zero. The main aim is to understand the internals of Flutter. So
nice.
I tried to just look from a different perspective, that rather than a typical streamlined learning, I wanted to make it more like how you relate with how you render things, and then how you make a movie, for example, from a director's point of view. So I tried to relate those things together, and I think it could be a good read for people who want to know how Flutter works behind the scenes. And yeah, and I think
so
I'm also. Yeah, I can provide the link also.
No, I was going to say I've got the link here to the sample and a link to purchase as well in the chat as well.
Yes, and if you use Flutter community as a coupon code, you'll get 25% off. So I think that would be a good thing to get your
Nice.
25%.
Nice.
Cool.
Cool. Well, I think that's it for the show. Thank you everyone for coming, and we'll be
Thanks
here
for having me,
same
guys.
place. Yeah, anytime.
Will try my best to join next time as well.
Sure. All right.
Been a long
Have
time.
you see you around, and be sure to follow us on the channel. Catch you later, guys. Later. Bye.
Bye, guys. Good night.